The Sri Lankan economic crisis has grown deeper and the island nation is staring even worse, with Colombo shutting operations of its only oil refinery for the next 50 days. The government calls it a part of the measures being taken to manage the dwindling Forex reserves. Sri Lankan economy is primarily dependent on the tourism industry, which has been massively hit by the pandemic, and now the government has been seeking foreign assistance in bailing it out. After a $3.6 billion support from Oman last month, Sri Lanka has now turned to its neighbouring ally India for a $500 million loan in order to keep its fuel supply running.
Long queues at petrol stations emerged as soon as the government of Sri Lanka declared this week that the country's only oil refinery was going to be locked for nearly 2 months. While some turned up in panic, others looked at it as a signal of an impending spike in petrol prices in the coming weeks. People at the lower strata of the society blame the government for the crisis and accuse that the Rajapaksa duo has failed at managing the crisis in the country. And it is not just about the petrol, but people have been struggling with shortages of multiple essential items, including cement, milk powder, rice and cooking gas over the last few weeks.
Petrol nane. Petrol is a polymer one of Malaganda. I can't say Papi Dukai, it's a right.
While the list of reasons responsible for the current crisis in Sri Lanka is long, which also include policy paralysis in Colombo, many experts have narrowed it down to 2 prime factors. One, the pandemic that battered the country's top revenue-generating sector, and 2, a sharp rise in the international crude oil prices. The hike in the global oil prices has forced Sri Lanka to spend more on oil imports this year. The country's oil bill has jumped 41.5% to $2 billion in the first 7 months of this year compared to last year. The government, however, has ruled out a price revision for the time being and has blamed the opposition for spreading rumours on fuel shortage.
As I warned on 29 September at a media briefing, we have decided to temporarily close down the Rajapaksa oil refinery because of the shortage in the foreign currency in the country. So we have to maximally utilize the limited foreign currency reserves for importation of the essential goods.
The country's gross domestic product contracted by a record 3.6% in 2020, and its foreign exchange reserves plunged by half in 1 year to just $2.8 billion in July. This has led to a 9% depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee against the dollar over the last year, making imports more expensive. It is now looking at its partners to bail it out in the crisis. It has sought $500 million support from India in order to have an uninterrupted fuel supply. It is not just the pandemic, but Sri Lanka has been hit with a number of issues that it has to set in order before moving forward. A ban on the import of fertilizers has also resulted in a sudden spike in food inflation, against which the farmers are on the streets for weeks. Experts predict the Rajapaksa government is set to face its most challenging times in the next few months, treading and overcoming which is going to be nothing short of an uphill task.